Hi friends, welcome to Sri Chaitanya. This is Uma Shankar. Yeah, in first lesson, second lesson of continuity, we have discussed continuity of a function at a point and types of discontinuities. Now, the most important area in the continuity, which is nothing but properties of continuous functions. So in this video, mainly we are concentrating the properties, especially these properties are useful not only in a continuity chapter, the applications are very useful in differentiation and in integration chapters also. Nowadays, mainly in advanced and mains examinations, they are concentrating like this on these particular areas only. Yeah, as we defined just like in limits of the functions, here also in algebra of the continuity of the functions. Here I am concentrating the first property. If f and g are two functions of x defined in some neighborhood of C, and both f and g are continuous at x is equal to c. So what are f and g? They are two functions and they are defined in at x is equal to continuous at x is equal to c. That is first point. Then the sum of these two functions and the difference and the product are also continuous at x is equal to c. That means sum of two continuous functions is again a continuous function. Difference of two continuous functions at a point is again a continuous function. Product of two continuous functions at a point is also a continuous function at that point C. At that point. Actually, if you have verify old JEE mains or advanced paper, especially advanced papers, the same statement they asked in the form of the question also. Which of the following statement is true or statements are true like that? One or more than one answer type of questions they have asked it. But again I am telling one important and costliest point. This is my USP, that is, yeah, sum of two continuous functions is continuous, difference is continuous, product is continuous, no doubt. But what is about the converse? What is about the converse? That means if f and g are two functions, such that the sum is continuous and difference is continuous and the product is continuous at a particular point C, then what can you say about the continuity of the individual functions? Are they both continuous? That is the question. Yeah, this is the point I am concentrating now, and in coming examination also at any time, questions will repeat and they should ask this kind of questions. So again I am stressing more. Though sum of two functions is continuous at a particular point, then individually the functions both need not be continuous. Similarly, difference also. Similarly, product also. You will learn several examples. Slowly I will explain. For that, yeah, as I said earlier also, f of x is equal, you take this as minus 1 when x greater than or equal to 0, 1 when x less than or equal to 0, and g of x is equal to 1 for x greater than or equal to 0 and minus 1 when x less than or equal to 0. Okay, greater than 0 and less than or equal to 0. Here it is also greater than 0 and it is less than or equal to 0. You take this kind of examples. Once again, I am defining the functions very neatly. Don't worry. Is equal to minus 1 when x greater than 0 and it is less than or equal to 0. And this is greater than 0 and it is less than or equal to 0. No doubt. What is f plus g? F plus g becomes what? That is equal to 0 for every x. This is continuous function because every constant function is a continuous function. But this function as well as this function, they are not continuous at x is equal to 0. Similarly, f minus g case also. Similarly, suppose if my function f of x is equal to x and g of x is equal to what is called sine 1 by x, where x is not equal to 0. Then what is f of x into g of x? That is x sine 1 by x for x not equal to 0. No doubt, f of x into g of x is continuous at x is equal to 0, whereas f is continuous at x is equal to 0, but g is not continuous at x is equal to 0. This is another example. Though the product of any two functions is continuous, then both the functions are not necessarily be continuous. This type of questions I am expecting, they should come. They should come in any of the JEE mains and advanced examinations. Similarly, the quotient of two continuous functions is again as continuous function, provided the denominator not equal to 0. And absolute value of that function, both are continuous. If f is continuous, then mod f is continuous. But if mod f is continuous, then the function f need not be continuous. See, this is the best example for that. Here what is mod f? Mod f is nothing but 1 only for every x. It is continuous at x is equal to 0. It is not continuous at x is equal to 0. Or if I have taken minus 1 and 1, then that story would be the different one. I can define my function like this. Then it is equal to 1 for every x. Then what will happen? Though mod f is defined, but your function is not defined. Mod f is continuous, but your function is not continuous. If f is continuous, then mod f is continuous. But if mod f is continuous, then f need not be continuous. So this is about the properties, and they are properties of continuous functions of algebra. Very, very useful for you. Now coming to another important property. This is a continuity of the composite function. Yeah, actually I told this point in a calculus video, and even in a 2020 JEE mains examination also questions were repeated based on this. See, here two functions are there. One, f is defined on a set D with range R. So this is my D and this is my range of the function R. This is range of the function, this is f. Let f be the function defined on a set D. This is a domain and with range R. This is f, and g of u is defined on the set D dash. What is D dash? G of u is defined on the set D dash, which contains R where x belongs to D. Suppose if here x is there and here g of u is in here it is D dash, I can say this is R and this is x and this is g of x, I can say that is equal to u, that is equal to u. Okay, or if it is f of g of x, or do one thing, I can write somewhat very neatly. Say this is my this one, and this is my f, and this is my g, and if it is x, and this is my f of x, this is my f of x, and this is u, and this is my g of f of x, which is equal to, which is here. This is called what? G circle f of x. This is what? Composite of the function. That means if f is a f d2 r is a function, g some r2 d dash is a function, then if read it properly, if x belongs to D then f of x belongs to R, this is range, and f of x is equal to u, this is d dash. So g of f of x is defined. So the resulting function f defined f of x is equal to g of f of x. It is called composite of g of x, and we can say that the composite of capital F is defined on D. So my friends, again, what is the definition of a composite of the function? In your regular function language, you can say like this. Suppose if f g are like this, if f a to b is a function and g b to c is a function, then g circle f a to c is called composite of the function f and g. On the similar lines, here my f is from d to d dash, this is f, and it is g, and here if it is x, and the image of f of x is equal to here, let it be u, and image of g, that is g of f of x is equal to g of u, which is one this, then this is called g circle f of x, this is called composite of f and g. So if f and g satisfies the conditions of the above paragraph, whenever this kind of conditions are holds good for two functions, and if both are continuous at a point C, that means if f is continuous at a point C as well as g is continuous at a point C, then we can say that the composite of the function g circle f is also continuous at C. Then we can say that the composite of the function is also continuous at x is equal to C. This is what composite of the, continuity of the composite of the functions. So once again, very neatly, very clearly, I am stressing more because it may create some confusion in your minds. Read it properly. Let f be defined on a set D with range R. G of u be defined on a set D dash with which contains R. Okay. If x belongs to D, then f of x belongs to R, and consequently f of x is equal to u belongs to D dash, so that g of f of x is defined. So clear na? So suppose if it is D and if it is D dash and if it is some other set, I am least bothered about that set, and this is the function f defined from D to D dash, and this is my range of this function f. If x is here and automatically the image f of x is here, let it be u, and the function g is defined from d dash to something, let it be say some d double dash, some other set. If f is continuous at x and g is continuous at f of x, then I can say that my g circle f, that is composite of f and g, is again continuous at x. This particular concept is called continuity of the composite of two functions f and g. Based on this particular area, even in 2020 also questions were repeated. Please try to understand it properly. Again, what is my f? It is a function from D to D dash. What is my D? This is a domain of f. And what is my D dash? It is codomain of f. And what is R? It is my range of f. And G is from D dash to some other D double dash. X is a point in f. F is defined at x is equal to x. And the image of f of x is in R, and your g is defined at f of x, which is nothing but u. That means if f is continuous at x is equal to at x in the domain, and if g is continuous at f of x, which is in the domain of g, then g circle f, that means composite of f and g, is continuous again at x. Why it is x? X is in the domain of f only. This funda is called what? Composite, continuity of the composite function. And another important note, continuous function of the continuous function is continuous. That means if f is continuous and g is continuous, then g of f, that means continuity of continuous, is again continuous. This is another important point. Next important property, if a function f has its values greater than or equal to 0, that means if f is continuous at x is equal to c, then root f is also continuous at x, but converse need not be true. Again, but converse need not be true. But converse need not be true. So, whenever we are concentrating or talking about any properties of functions, especially in the continuity and differentiation, that means any statement in the calculus, rethink about its converses. So, if f is continuous at x is equal to c, then root f is also continuous at x is equal to c, provided all the values of the function has greater than or equal to 0, but converse need not be true. But converse need not be true. Clear? Now, deeper properties. These are the elementary properties so far. Now we are concentrating the most important properties, going into deep. Now, of that, first one is neighborhood property. It is also neighborhood theorem of the limits like. That means, if f is a continuous at a certain point c, and moreover f of c not equal to 0. F of c not equal to 0 means it is either greater than 0 or less than 0. That means either it is above the x-axis or below the x-axis. Then there exists a certain neighborhood of c such that for every x in the neighborhood of f of x, for every x in the neighborhood, the sign of f of x and the sign of f of c both are same. This is what neighborhood property. Which signs are same? Sign of f of x and sign of f of c both are same. Actually, this is original neighborhood property. Based on this neighborhood property only, we are deriving the next important theorem, which is Bolzano's theorem or Bolzano's-Weierstrass theorem. Or some people, they may call this as the intermediate value theorem also, but it is not the intermediate value theorem. It is a lemma for the intermediate value theorem. This is called Bolzano's theorem or Bolzano's-Weierstrass theorem. It is the extension of neighborhood property. What is Bolzano's theorem? Your favorite theorem. Several times questions were repeated on this particular theorem. See what this theorem tells. Suppose if f is a real valued function defined in a closed interval a, b, see, this is important. Your function must be defined in a closed interval. And at endpoints, that means at a and b, the product of the functional values is negative. So when shall the functional values or product is negative? One is positive, one is negative. That means either f of a is positive and f of b is negative, or f of a is negative or f of b is positive. You take f of a and f of b, one is positive and one is negative, just like imagine a curve, which is as shown in the figure. Then if any curve, any continuous curve having this property, if you have plotted that curve, what will happen? It may crosses the x-axis in between a and b only. That point is, say, some point c, where that c always lie between a and b. That I can say what? Then there exists at least one point c where a less than c less than b such that f of c equal to 0. That means c becomes what? 0 or root of the equation f of x is equal to 0. This is the beautiful property of the continuous function. So, if a function defined in a closed interval a, b, and moreover at one end point it is positive and at another point it is negative. Suppose something like this. Suppose it is something like this. Suppose if I have drawn the curve like this, continuity, graphically the continuity of the function means without lifting your hand, if you are drawing the curve, If you are drawing the curve without lifting the hand, then we can simply say that the curve is continuous. The curve is what? Continuous. Suppose this is the function, it is defined in closed interval AB, and without lifting my hand I have drawn the curve like this. And this is what f of a. What does it mean? It is negative below the x-axis. It is what? F of b. And it is above the x-axis. It is positive and negative. So that means f of a into f of b is negative, which satisfies this condition. So no breaks, and at endpoints one is positive and one is negative. Then whenever this kind of situation arises, then automatically what will happen? The curve automatically intersects the x-axis at some point. See, for example, you take like this. You take like this. This is A and this is B. So without even lifting my hand, here also I have drawn the curve. This is a continuous curve. And here f of a is positive. This is my f of a, and this is f of b is negative. This is f of b negative, and here my f of a, it is positive. And moreover, without lifting hand, I have drawn the curve. What happened? Whenever I am drawing the curve like this, then automatically it intersects x-axis at least one point. Here it intersects x-axis at 3 points. Say this is C1, C2 and C3. What are C1, C2, C3? They are the points lie between A and B. Intersects x-axis means what? If the curve intersects x-axis means geometrically the point becomes root of the equation. So with the help of this beautiful theorem, we can find the roots of the continuous functions. That is the beauty of Bolzano's theorem. Actually, some people, they consider this as the intermediate value theorem. That's why, what's about a neighborhood property? Suppose if this is the C, if this is C, this is my neighborhood of C, in this neighborhood, if your function, see, if the function, these are the values of f of C. These are the values of f of C. If f of C is positive, then all the values are also positive. If f of C is negative, then all the values are negative. See, that's why if f of x not equal to 0, f of x not equal to 0 means f of C greater than 0 or less than 0. If f of C greater than 0, so in this one, in this region, from here to here, all the values of f of x are what? Positive. And f of C is also positive. Suppose if f of C is less than 0, that means you consider this part, then here in this region, all the values of f of C are negative. F of C also negative. That means what I told, in the neighborhood of f of x, in the neighborhood of x, f of x and f of C, they have what? Same sign. They have what? Same sign. That is what? Neighborhood property. The extension of neighborhood property is nothing but Bolzano's theorem, which is a lemma for what? Intermediate value theorem, the great intermediate value theorem. Now we are entering into the intermediate value theorem. What does it say? Again, so my friends, again, please, here you need to focus whenever we are applying a particular theorem for solving a particular problem. You have to concentrate all the boundary conditions. Here the boundary conditions are what? F is a real valued continuous function in a closed interval AB. Even in the Bolzano's theorem also defined, the function is in closed interval. So if f is a continuous function defined in a closed interval AB and f of a not equal to f of b, what does it mean? F of a not equal to f of b means f of a greater than f of b or f of a less than f of b. So try to understand, f of a not equal to 0 means two cases, f of a greater than 0 or f of a less than 0. That means the length, the height, f of a means at x is equal to a, the functional value is above the x-axis or below the x-axis. Greater than 0 means above, below, f of x less than 0 means below. Suppose f of a not equal to f of b means what? F of a greater than f of b or f of a less than f of b. See here, at x is equal to a, at x is equal to b, here there is no breaks at all. This is a continuous curve. This is what my f of a and this is what my f of b. So this length is what? My f of a. So this is my f of a. This length is what? My f of b. This is my f of b. This is my f of a and this is my f of b. What is that? What is the meaning? F of a not equal to f of b. Then what will happen? F assumes every value between f of a and f of b at least once. F assumes every value between f of a and f of b at least once. That means what? You take any value between f of a and f of b. Say for example, some f of c. Say for example it is f of c. You ask the question, what is this point? F of c. Then immediately you can say that this is nothing but a point which is in between a and b such that the functional value of that point is nothing but f of c. So every value you take, or I can say like this, you take any value, every value between f of a and f of b are lies between here only. That means there exist. F assumes every value between f of a and f of b means, suppose if lambda belongs to f of a, open interval f of a comma f of b, or lambda belongs to open interval f of b comma f of a, because I don't know f of a is less than f of b or f of a greater than f of b. That's for two cases. Then there exist at least a point c belongs to open interval ab such that f of c equal to lambda. F of c equal to lambda. This is the beauty of intermediate value theorem, because it takes all the values in between f of a and f of b. That is why we called it as what? Intermediate value theorem. Similarly, see the next graph. See here also. This is about f of a and this is about f of b. One is negative, another one is positive. And this is the corresponding value of f of a and this is the corresponding value of f of b. You take any value between f of a and f of b. Say take some value here, say some c1. What is this value? You ask the question. Then immediately I can give reply this. You draw a line and which intersects the curve like this, and you draw the horizontal line, that means let it be lambda. That point is always lie between what? A and b only. That point always lie between a and b only. That means f can assume every value between f of a and f of b. This is what? Original intermediate value theorem. So this is an extension of the previous Bolzano-Weierstrass theorem. This is another beautiful property of continuous function in closed interval AB. See, all the properties are existing only in the closed interval. Don't forget. Now coming to fixed point theorem. Fixed point. It is also already we have discussed this point even in the limits lesson also. What is this? If f is again based on this theorem also in IIT examination, questions were repeated. 3 or 4 times questions were repeated in a JEE advanced examinations or IIT JEE examination. So such an important theorem it is, fixed point theorem. What is that? Suppose if f is a continuous function on closed interval AB and f of x belongs to closed interval AB. What is f of x? Image of x. That means f closed interval AB to closed interval AB is a function defined such that then f has a fixed point. That means what? There exists a point C in closed interval AB whose functional value is nothing but C only. Because here domain and codomain, domain and range are what? Same. Suppose suppose some C is here in a domain, then obviously that C is what? It is nothing but functional value of something. So that value is f of C. So this kind of theorem is called what? Fixed point theorem. I will give the one beautiful example by a beautiful problem, which type of problem they asked for applying this fixed point theorem also I will explain. Otherwise, please don't forget to take very good examples from your lecturers even in your regular class also. In the next lesson, I will give most beautiful examples to support all my theorems. Now coming to next theorem. See, it is also very, very important theorem. What is that? f b is a real valued function, real valued continuous function defined in a closed interval a b, and f of a not equal to f of b. Let mu be a number between f of a and f of b. Moreover, assume that f is strictly monotonic in closed interval a b. Then there exists exactly one value of x is equal to c, where a less than c less than b such that f of c equal to mu. That means for f of x is equal to mu, the equation has exactly only one root will exist, provided the function is what? Strictly monotonic. That means either it is increasing or decreasing. Suppose say like this. For example, your function is like this. It is continuous and say it is defined in a closed interval a b. And moreover, f of a not equal to f of b. This is my f of a. And this is the corresponding value f of b. My f of a not equal to f of b. It is continuous and it is defined in closed interval a b. And f of a not equal to f of b. And it is strictly monotonic. Then you take any value lambda here. You ask, what is this lambda? Then immediately I can give a reply like this. You draw a line parallel to this lambda, and it intersects the curve here, and you take the corresponding value, let it be c. Where is c? It is the point in between a and b only. And the value of f of c is nothing but lambda. That means for this equation exactly, for this equation f of x is equal to lambda, the equation has exactly only one root will exist, provided the function is what? Monotonic. Provided the function is what? Monotonic. This is the another beautiful example, and this is an extension of the fixed point theorem. See, provided the function is what? Continuous and in closed interval a b. Please don't forget, all the theorems holds good for a continuous function in closed interval a b only. Now coming to converses of the intermediate value theorem. Yeah, what I told. If f is continuous in closed interval a b and f of a not equal to f of b, then f can assume every value between f of a and f of b. That is what? Intermediate value theorem. But again what I told, converse, now I am concentrating. In a closed interval a b, if f assumes at least one value between f of a and f of b with f of a not equal to f of b, then f need not be continuous in closed interval a b. Again, my friends, so far they asked only the direct theorems and the applications of the direct theorems. Nobody has concentrated converses of the above standard theorems. I am expecting that time will come at any time. In advanced examination or mains examination, in theoretical questions, sometimes they will ask this kind of beautiful problems. What this says? Though your function f of a equal to not equal to f of b, and f assumes every value between f of a and f of b, but f not necessarily be continuous. For that, you take this as the example, standard example. You can construct on your own way examples of this kind. What is this branch-wise function? My function is f of x is 0 when x is equal to 0, and it is half minus x, that is from 0 to half. It is equal to half when x is equal to half. 3 by 2 minus x when half to 1 is equal to 1, and when x is equal to 1. See, the graph is like this. So when x is equal to 0, it is 0. And from 0 to half, it is what? Half minus x. And at x is equal to 1 by 2, it is again what? 1 by 2. See, somewhere 1 by 2. Okay, and from 1 by 2 to 1, your curve is again 3 by 2 minus x. Almost the graph is like this. What happened? You take you take any value between f of a and f of b. What is f of a? 0. And f of 0 is equal to 0. F of 1 is equal to what? F of 1 is equal to 1. So you take any value from 0 and 1, you take any value. Suppose you take some value here, you draw the line, you take some value here, draw the line, you take the corresponding values, you take some value here and draw the line, and the corresponding value you take. All the values are lie between 0 and 1 only. All the values are lie between 0 and 1 only. But what happened here? The function is not continuous. See, gems are there. Gems are there. It is not continuous at x is equal to 0. It is not continuous at x is equal to 1 by 2. So, though f assumes at least once every value between f of a and f of b, and f of a not equal to f of b, but f not necessarily be continuous. This is what converse of the intermediate value theorem. Okay. So, my friends, here this is the same thing I have mentioned in the clearly. So, there are discontinuous functions. The function, your function is discontinuous where? At 0, 1 by 2 and 1, but every value between 0 and 1 assumed by f, take any line parallel to that. I have explained here everything very clearly. You take any value between 0 and 1, that means f of 0 is equal to 0, f of 1 equal to, luckily, f of 0 and f of 1 are same as 0 and 1. So, you take any value between 0 and 1, draw the parallel lines, and where it intersects the curve, you draw the corresponding lines on x-axis. Those points are always lie between 0 and 1 only. But your function is what? Discontinuous. Your function is what? Discontinuous. That is why converse of the intermediate value theorem is not true. Now coming to boundedness property of continuous function. See, my friends, another beautiful theorem, and problems were repeated in IIT examination. Such an important theorem it is, and converse also very, very important. See, this is the subject you have to practice, not giving a function and finding whether checking the continuity at a simple point, not like that. They are also important, but apart from that, if you are thorough with this kind of concepts, you can do wonders. See, what is the boundedness property? If a function f is continuous in a closed interval ab, then it is bounded in that interval. So, every continuous function defined in a closed interval ab is bounded. What does it mean by bounded? A function f is said to be bounded. There exist two real numbers, small m and capital M, such that small m less than or equal to f of x less than or equal to capital M for every x belongs to domain of the function. This we can call it as boundedness, bounded property. Bounded means every value of the function should lie between two fixed numbers. In your language, see, minus 1 less than or equal to sin x less than or equal to 1. You take any value of x, sin function is always lie between minus 1 and 1 only. Here, like small m is equal to minus 1 and capital M is equal to 1. Therefore, it is what? A bounded function. And moreover, it is a continuous function. Continuous everywhere, after all in a particular interval. That is a different story. So, if any continuous function you take in a closed interval ab, it is always bounded. It is always bounded. But one thing, your function must be continuous in a closed interval. Closed interval. But converse need not be true. But converse need not be true. That means, if a function which is continuous only in open interval AB or semi-intervals, it may not be bounded. It may not be bounded. That's why I am very much focused on what? The boundary conditions. Here the boundary condition is closed interval AB. If you are taking other than closed interval, that means open interval or semi-open or semi-closed. Again, your function need not be bounded. Further, this is the best example. F of x is equal to 1 by x for every x belongs to open interval 0, 1. In this interval, there is no problem. It is your continuous function. Whereas, the limit of this function, right hand limit is the graph. If you have drawn the graph of this function becomes like this only. So, it never lie between a particular values, finite values. It never be in between two particular finite values. If a function, all functional values should lie between two fixed values, then only we can say that the function is bounded. Here it is not possible to find the boundaries of the function. Not bounded. Again, converse of the above theorem not true. That means not every bounded function is continuous. This is converse. Not about the statement. This is converse. Not every bounded function is continuous. See, my favorite function f of x is equal to 1 when x is irrational. Already I told this kind of functions, they are called what? Dirichlet functions. They are called what? Dirichlet functions. Is equal to 1 when x is irrational, is equal to minus 1 when x is irrational. If you are considering this kind of functions, they are what? Bounded functions, because you take any value, always lie between minus 1 and 1 only. So it is a bounded function, no doubt, but it is not continuous because limit does not exist. Limit does not exist. So converse of the above theorem need not be true. So if a function is continuous in a closed interval, then it is bounded. But if a function is bounded, need not be continuous. And if your function is defined in other than closed interval, it need not be bounded in that interval, though it is continuous. Clear? And coming to next, attainment boundedness property of continuous function. Read this statement very carefully. Here somewhat very important terms I have applied, LUB and GLB. Greatest lower bound and least upper bound. It is somehow some advanced terminology. Or I can say simply in your language, the maxima and minima. Continuous language, it is greatest lower bound and least upper bound, but in your language you can easily understand maxima and minima. So what is this property? What are those attainments of boundedness properties? If a function is continuous in a closed interval, then it assumes its least upper bound and greatest lower bound in that interval. Then it assumes least upper bound and greatest lower bound in that interval. What do you mean by least upper bound and greatest lower bound? See, my friends, suppose if f is a function, f of x is a function, and k is any real number. If f of x less than or equal to k for every x, then we can say that this k is called upper bound of the function. Then we can say that k is called what? Upper bound of the function. That means if all the functional values less than or equal to some fixed value, which is a real number, then we can say that that number is called what? Upper bound. If all the functional values are less than a particular number, then obviously all the functional values should always less than any number more than that k. Any number that more than that k. That means if f of x is less than or equal to k, then obviously f of x is less than that k plus epsilon. So if k is upper bound, then k plus epsilon is also upper bound. What is epsilon? Epsilon is any arbitrary positive real number, however small it may be or whatever it may be. So if once upper bound exists, then there exists infinitely many number of upper bounds. Among those all upper bounds, you take or you select the least one, that is called the least upper bound. Simply I can call it as LUB, or in other language I can call it as supremum. I call it as what? Supremum. Similarly, suppose if f is a function and small k is any real number. If f of x greater than or equal to small k for every x, then we can say that k is called the lower bound. This is called what? Lower bound. Once if all the functional values are greater than k, then obviously it is greater than k minus epsilon, where epsilon is my positive real number. So once lower bound exists, then there exist infinitely many number of lower bounds. So among all lower bounds, the greatest one is called the greatest lower bound. I can call that as infimum. I can call it as infimum or GLB. These kind of terminology you will learn in the real analysis chapter. Of course, At present, they may not ask this kind of things, but in comprehension point of view, this terminology is very, very useful and essential for you. And here, what I'm saying is, if f is a continuous function, what this theorem tells, that property tells, definitely it has a lower bound and upper bound. Because every continuous function closed interval AB is what? Bounded. Bounded means what? It has the greatest, all the functional values should lie between some numbers. Of that, the f of x greater than or equal to capital M and f of x is less than or equal to small m, then this capital M is called the LUB and this small m is called the GLB. This only the property tells. Provided the function is what? Continuous in closed interval. Again, if the function is not continuous in closed interval, the property need not be true. This is 100% valid provided the function is what? Continuous in closed interval AB. Other than that, it is not valid. That's why, see, if f is continuous in open interval AB, the above statement need not be true. This is costliest point. Now, coming to next important property. So, if f is a continuous function in a closed interval AB, then f assumes all values between upper and lower bounds. Already I told what is upper bound and what is lower bound. This point already I told. Because if f is continuous, and suppose you take, suppose my sin x function. I am taking my sin x function like this. Suppose my function sin x defined from closed interval 0, 2 pi to closed interval -1, 1 like this. Like this, 0, pi by 2, pi, 3 pi by 2, 2 pi. So my function is like this. It is a continuous function. Then what this theorem tells, if a function f is continuous in closed interval AB, then f assumes all values between upper and lower bounds. What are upper and lower bounds? This is upper bound and this is lower bound. So, any value, any number you take between -1 and 1, how many values, how many numbers will exist between -1 and 1? Infinitely many numbers will exist. You take any parallel line, draw any parallel lines and take the corresponding values. All those corresponding values should lie in between 0 to 2 pi only. That means f is continuous in closed interval a comma b. So f assumes all values exactly between upper and lower bounds. These fundamentals are again useful for greatest and least values and maximum minimum of continuous functions, which we are going to learn soon in applications of derivatives. That is the beauty of continuity of the function in closed interval. Don't worry. This is a little bit advanced one because my videos I am especially preparing, and these lessons and lectures are also not only useful for students, these are useful even for your lecturers also. Now coming to next, continuity of inverse function. See, when shall inverse of the function will exist? If it is 1, 1 and on 2, then only we can say that the function is inverse of the function exists. If inverse of the function exists, again it is also bisective. Bisective means if a function is both 1, 1 and on 2, then we can call it as a function as bisective. Inverse of the bisective function is also a bisective. Okay? Like this. Suppose if f is strictly increasing, because monotonic means monotonicity. F is monotonic. Monotonic means either monotonically increasing or monotonically decreasing. If it is either monotonically increasing or decreasing, then we can say that the function is called monotonic. Strictly increasing means it is like this. Strictly decreasing means it is like this. So here my properties are under strictly increasing function. If f is a strictly increasing function in a closed interval AB, then inverse of f exists. That means f inverse exists. It is also what? Strictly increasing. Suppose if f is strictly increasing in a closed interval AB, then F inverse is also strictly increasing in closed interval AB. Okay, so similarly, if F is decreasing in strictly decreasing in closed interval AB, then its inverse is also decreasing. Okay, so listen, the inverse of F inverse exists and strictly monotonically increasing in its domain of the function. If F is continuous in closed interval AB, F inverse also continuous. That means whenever they are asking, they are checking you to what is about continuity of this function or some other function, then immediately you are under knowledge that okay, the given functions are inverses to one another, then obviously if your original function is continuous, automatically you can say that the given function is also continuous. This is about what? Increasing. Similarly, the same things we can discuss with the decreasing. So inverse of if F is strictly decreasing, the strictly decreasing on closed interval AB, then inverse of F inverse, the inverse function F inverse exists and it is also strictly decreasing. So inverse of the strictly increasing function exists and is strictly increasing. Inverse of the decreasing function exists and is also strictly decreasing. And suppose if F is a continuous function in closed interval AB, then F inverse is also continuous function on closed interval beta comma alpha, where alpha is equal to f of A and beta is equal to f of B, because suppose it is A and it is B and it is corresponding value f of A, this is nothing but alpha, this is corresponding value f of B, nothing but beta, and here my f of A becomes what? The least value. My f of B becomes what? My greatest value. So if closed interval AB is my domain of the function and closed interval alpha comma beta are the range of the function, increasing function, then for inverse function automatically they are in reverse order. So this is another beauty of continuity of the function defined in closed interval. So again, if F is strictly increasing function in closed interval AB, then its inverse F inverse exists and is also monotonically increasing and in its domain. And if F is continuous on closed interval AB, then F inverse is also continuous on closed interval alpha comma beta, where alpha is f of alpha, beta is f of beta, f of B. Similarly for decreasing also. On the same way, if F is strictly increasing, then minus F is strictly decreasing. That means negative of increasing function is decreasing and negative of decreasing function is increasing, and vice versa. So that is about monotonicity of increasing and decreasing functions, where now the continuity of and monotonicity. If F is continuous, again continuous in closed interval AB, and assumes every value between f of A and f of B just once, and it is strictly monotonic in the same interval. Simply I can say that if every monotonic function defined in every monotonic continuous function defined in closed interval AB is monotonic and assumes every value between f of A and f of B. That means if F is if there exists alpha comma beta in closed interval AB such that f of alpha is equal to capital M and f of beta is equal to small m, where small m and capital M are what? Greatest and least values. That is the meaning of continuity and monotonicity of the function defined in closed interval AB. Once again, if f be the continuous function in closed interval AB and assumes every value between f of A and f of B just once, it is strictly monotonic in that interval. Then it is strictly monotonic in that interval. Or I can say one in another language, if f is continuous in closed interval AB, then it is bounded and attains its bounds at least once in closed interval AB. If f is continuous in closed interval AB, then it is bounded and attains its bounds at least once in closed interval AB. Once again, if f is bounded in closed interval AB and continuous, f is continuous, sorry. If f is continuous in closed interval AB, continuous in closed interval AB, then f is bounded in closed interval AB and attains its bounds at least once in closed interval AB. That means if small m comma capital M are least and greatest values of the function, then there exists alpha comma beta in open interval AB such that f of alpha is equal to small m and f of beta is equal to capital M. This is the meaning of that statement. This is the meaning of attains its bounds at least once in closed interval AB. The same thing will happen even for monotonic functionals. Monotonic means either it is increasing or decreasing. So if f is continuous on closed interval AB and assumes each value between f of A and f of B just once, then it is strictly monotonic in the same interval. So this is also a test whether the function is monotonic or not. This is also a test to check whether the given function is monotonic or not. How to check? If your function is continuous and assumes every value between f of A and f of B, then immediately I can say that your function is strictly monotonic. That means either it is increasing or decreasing. This is one litmus test to identify whether your function is monotonically increasing or decreasing. Test the monotonicity. Because in derivatives, we can check the monotonicity like this. If a function is monotonically increasing, if f dash x is greater than 0, decreasing, f dash x is less than 0, something like that. Instead of that, this is also the condition statement of checking the monotonicity of the given function. So my friends, the last properties, though they may somewhat difficult for you, slowly you can enjoy and you will understand the reality behind the screen with some solid examples and techniques. Because this kind of standards at least you have to practice, because this is the video useful not only for mains but advanced also. Those who are preparing for advanced examinations, this kind of knowledge is very, very essential for you to strengthen your subject and to maintain grip on the calculus especially. And if all these problems and theoretical points they covered in your campuses, no problem. Otherwise, you please ask and clarify more information, take more information with your corresponding instructors also. And hope if you like this video, please don't forget to share this and subscribe our channel, and we will meet with next lesson number 1 with the differentiation. Once after completion of functions, limits, continued differentiation, I will give beautiful questions. So, meanwhile, NTA will release our notification also, and several things we have to do and going to do for you, for your improvement. This kind of information always we are being providing in Sri Chaitanya. That kind of experienced faculty are there with Sri Chaitanya. That is the secret of success. And soon we are going to start one beautiful what is called grand test series and all India test series also. Regarding that, if you have any queries, you please don't hesitate to ask the corresponding administrators of Sri Chaitanya. Meanwhile, please don't neglect and don't pass unnecessary comments, because these are the videos useful not only for you, but strengthening the subject knowledge of your faculty members also. Okay, my friends, hope it helps you a lot, and we will meet soon. Thank you. Thank you once again.